G9 Season 16 of LFM is here, and we are returning to the Red Bull Ring, which, if you've been following my channel, you will know is the place that I had my very first rookie races at some months ago. But this week I'll be bringing you both the ugliest and best moments of LFM racing to date for me. You see, for the very first time I made a significant mistake that truly affected another driver's race, and I feel absolutely terrible about it. On the flip side, I also had some of my very best racing at LFM, which you can see at the latter part of the last race. And I also learned an interesting thing about where I'm at with LFM at the moment, which I can discuss at the end as well. Let's not waste time though, you're going to want to check out all this action. Let's dive into qualifying for race number 1. Right, so let's jump into qualifying now for race number 1. We are looking at 29-degree track temperatures for this race, so I'm not expecting to set any real fastest laps here, and we're in a midday race, so we're door card number 16, and obviously just one split for this one. We're coming out of turn 1 now, and on the run up the hill, this little kink here being turn 2, and then the hard braking zone ready for turn number 3. Hitting a brake marker there. The BMW certainly struggled to get out of turn number 3, particularly compared to some of the other types of cars, so we're just trying to maximize that one over the week, and it was a real focus point for me. Coming under the sign there, on the way down to turn number 4, hard on the brakes down to second gear. BMW not liking first at any point, so we stay in second through that turn, and then making the way up to turn number 6 here. Got a car on the entry curb there for turn number 6, so we can't use as much of it as we like. Really awkward long corner there, using some more of that exit curb, and once again turn 7 is also quite awkward as well, using a lot of the exit curb there to maximize the pace. 1.5 tenths up on this lap, and we come into the final sequence of corners. We use a bunch of that entry curb as well. Third gear, which I start using fourth gear through there later in the week, and then chucking it into the last corner. Another car on the exit curb there to avoid, so it wasn't the perfectly clean lap, but we're a little bit up in a 1 minute 29.1 second lap, showing 14th on the grid with 3.5 minutes left to go. There was no further improvements from me, and it's a P17 start after the session concludes. Looking at race start now, and we get green lights, and away we go, and we are looking to just get nice and safely through this turn 1. The very first time I ever came up to this turn 1 here, it was an almighty accident, so fortunately we get a nice clean one through here. We've got a car on the outside on the runoff there. He keeps his foot in it, and he's going to put his nose ahead as we make our way up towards turn number 3. Got this Italian flag Ferrari in front of us, and I'm obviously a few car legs back. I get it good on the brakes. I decide not to throw it into the gap that's open there, just would cause problems. And a yellow McLaren there, he gets a good run around the outside of turn number 3, taking away one more position, but we remain in P17, our starting place through the first part of this very first lap. Coming through turn 6 on lap number 2, and as you can see, I am surrounded by all of these mid-engine cars. The blue Ferrari, he dives up the inside at turn 7, but unfortunately gets collected by the Italian flag Ferrari from behind, so he gets taken out into the infield, and we gain one position up to P16. And the first part of this race was really just trying to find my groove there. I make a mistake there at turn 1. As you can see, the yellow McLaren and the other cars have skipped away from me here. This is the start of lap number 6, and now this McLaren behind's got a really good run up the outside. I'm defending the inside up into turn 3, and this was probably one of the weak parts of the track. I really struggled to get out of turn 3 there, but the McLaren, he goes wider than he needed to, and he goes into the runoff area, so I've maintained that inside position there on the way down to turn number 4. Trying to squeeze him a little bit there, but there's still lots of space for him. I brake early enough to make the apex for turn 4, and the McLaren goes a little bit too long, so he's not able to hang around the outside, and we managed to hold off that attack there. Coming towards the end of that first stint, 21 minutes to go. We've stayed out longer than most, so we're actually sitting in P3 as we come into the pit lane. Nice and cautious on pit entry, and we don't quite hit our marks here, almost on the pit stop, so we lose a little bit of time in that regard. And the result of that, with the McLaren who was fighting behind also coming to the pit lane that time round, he gets his pit stop much nicer. So although we had a second on him as we came into the pits, he's managed to jump us through the stop. So once again losing out in that pit stop sequence. We come out of the pit lane now and we're sitting in P19, which turns to P20 as this Ferrari comes around turn number 1 with 19 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock remaining in this race. I have changed tyres, so it's just looking like a sprint race now to the end on fresh rubber. And as we make our way to the start of lap number 19, there's a couple of cars in the pit lane, so we move up there to that P17 position, maintaining our grid slot so far in this race. But with 8 minutes left to go, things are starting to boil up now, and as things tend to do in these 45-minute races, a bit of chaos starts to unfold. We've got a couple of cars involved in a bit of an incident on the front straight. One of them gets going again, but as we come around the last corner, you can see there one car on the inside, so we pick up one position up to P16, 7 minutes, 50 seconds of this race still to go. And then as we come with 4.5 minutes left, we start to gain on a couple of cars in front. There's been a bit of fighting up in front, and that's allowed that battle to come back towards me. And we have door card 19 Ferrari directly behind me as well. So I'm having to look ahead, but mostly look behind. This Ferrari's got a really good run on me out of turn number 3. He holds me hard to the inside line. He's not letting me go back to the racing line at all. Not really entirely sure where to brake into turn 4, so I brake too early, and that allows him to go straight around the outside. A really well thought out move by that Ferrari. And then at the start of the next lap, he begins to do exactly the same thing to the door card number 13 of Ferrari in front of him. Holds him really hard to the inside, but the Ferrari, this black and silver Ferrari, he does not make a good braking point, and he ends up collecting the Italian flag Ferrari in turn number 3. And as you can see, I sneak up the inside, and as the Ferrari tries to drive off, he takes a little bump, and there is still pure chaos behind with those two cars. So I pick up 2 positions very late in the race up to P15, and that's where things remain for me for the rest of this race, coming through the last turn for the last time, that Ferrari in front going wide. But it's a solid race from me, relatively consistent, not entirely the pace I was hoping for, but keeping my nose clean has allowed me to pick up that 15th position, a little bit of elo, and nice to just get a decent race under the belt to start off with. So, qualifying now for race number 2, and it's a better weather condition one for us here. 23-degree track temperatures, which is exactly as it is in the LFM practice service, so I certainly know what I'm in for this race. I've done a little bit more practice in the BMW, starting to find a little bit more time with this car, and as we come up to turn number 3, you can see really good into turn 3, and we come out the other side of that about 3.5 tenths up on our best lap, which is a 28.79 at this stage. Unfortunately, through the middle part of the lap, not so good, but we come down to that final sequence of corners out of the last turn decently, and we pick up a tenth as we come out the other side there. So we're going to come through with a best lap of a 1 minute 28.62. Now this is an evening race, it's a proper split one race on door card 28, and that is exactly where I start this one. So although I have set an all-time best qualifying lap in the BMW here, I have not been able to get particularly far up the field. We get the race start now, we get underway, I go directly into the middle of the field. It's almost 3 wide as we come into turn 1, very, very tight everywhere, but everyone is being relatively sensible, and we get no contact through that first corner, which is fantastic, and we make our way now up towards turn number 3. Got a little bit more pace on this Porsche in front. I hit my braking marker, and I decide to squeeze up and make it tight in that first part of turn number 3. 3 wide through there, and I do not get a very good exit out of that corner being so tight on the inside, so it was really for nothing in the end, but it did protect my inside line, I guess. We come down towards turn number 4, we brake early enough, and we decide not to throw it up the inside here on this Porsche for this one, trying to be nice and safe. A little bit of a touch in front and a little bit of a pause from me. The Mustang's now on the outside. We're going 3 wide into turn 6, which doesn't work, so I brake early to get out of that one. Mustang now trying to go on the outside there, which doesn't work. And directly behind me, we've got Jeff from the Sim Cafe and his McLaren, and he makes his way on the inside of the Mustang. There's another Mustang on the outside of me, some touching in front between the Ferrari and the Porsche, so it's a little bit all over the show here at the end of lap number 1. Fortunately, we're holding on to our grid position at this stage, and we've kept the car clean, which is awesome. However, this is where things really unravel for me at the end of lap number 1. See, there's a Ferrari off wide and he causes some carnage across the track. Lots of cars involved there. Black Ferrari goes up the inside to avoid another spinning car, and I decide with him slower that I'd throw it up the inside. However, I miss my braking marker completely, launch it over that inside curb and clean out this pink and silver McLaren innocently in the middle of turn number 1. You can see all the chaos that was involved on the front straight there, and I'm just trying to capitalize on that slower Ferrari, but by the time I get the car squared up on the inside, it's all too late and we just launch it over that curb. Now, if we actually look at the inputs I make in the car, by the time I realized I was going to be making contact, I actually aimed it on the inside and did accelerate in panic mode to try and avoid him. However, it probably just made the whole situation much worse, and you can see here, complete innocent party, that front wheel of mine launching over the bonnet. So we do wait on track, we wait for him to get back going again, and after the race I do profusely apologize on the LFM messenger. I never got a reply back, so if you do see this, I am so sorry for that mistake. I feel so bad for ruining somebody's race. It's the one thing that I really don't want to be doing in LFM, so I do really apologize. Now, it does put us right at the back of the field, obviously, and it does take me a while just to get over that moment, if I'm being perfectly honest. We come up to turn number 1 now on lap number 10, and unfortunately that same driver gets taken out once again at turn number 1. We're coming through 25 minutes to go now, and I'm trying to recover as much as I can from this race, but I do make one more mistake out of turn number 6, and that sort of unwinds any of the progress that I had been making in that race. Nice easy rejoin there, staying out of the way of that red Ferrari. Don't want to be causing 2 main accidents inside one race, and that's basically where we stay. We're going to finish this one up in position 31. I do lose a bunch of elo, as I should. No one should be making mistakes like that and then recovering all sorts of points from that one. So it was just a race that I really wanted to put behind me, but it was a really good lesson to learn. If you're not making mistakes, you will not be learning inside LFM. So it was the first time that it happened. I've really learned from it, and we are going to take those lessons now and move into the final race to show you here, because like I said at the start of the video, there is the ugly, but there was the great. This one is a really cool race, and I do want to stick around for the battle that unfolds at the end of this one. Out of turn number 1 now in this qualifying session, we're going to run you around the lap, which is now my fastest lap around the Red Bull Ring to date inside ACC and LFM. We're coming up to turn number 3 here. Half decent into turn number 3, losing a little bit of time on the way out, but we are looking at 1.5 tenths up on our best lap so far, which is a 1 minute 28.4, and I was really starting to get a bit of a groove in the BMW around the circuit. Coming down to turn number 4 now, getting a little bit more pace through here, and we're going to stay with that 1.5 tenths up, but it's the end of the lap that I was looking to make up some time for this particular session. 21 degrees, which is helping, slightly lower track temperatures, not the absolute fastest track temps out there, but that was certainly helping. And again, we're looking at that split 1 race this in an evening session here, so door 24 inside of this big field, so we're hoping to at least hold on to that, if not progress a little bit higher. Coming through, you see I'm using 4th gear now through the second to last turn, and we're getting a lot nicer through the final turn while we're showing a dead heat. And the start of it, as we come out on the exit, much cleaner there, and we pick up nearly a tenth, and we go with a 1 minute 28 8.34, sitting there in 15th position with a few minutes to go, dropping down to P20 as we get to the start of this race. Right, and you're going to want to hold on for lap 1 of this race because a lot unfolds and it certainly sets us up for the remainder of the race here. We get a nice clean start and we're going to be looking at the outside of turn number 1 and a little bit of shuffling up in front, but no real majors. Everyone gets through there pretty cleanly. I don't get the greatest exit out of turn number 1, and with a car on my outside we have Jeff from the Sim Cafe. He is pushing his way up the middle of us as we head up to turn number 3. A really bold move, and we can't seem to be separated in races at the moment. Coming up to turn 3, I can see a red Ferrari sideways in the middle of the corner there. I go wide to avoid, however he's been straightened up and we get everyone through turn number 3. And on the run to turn number 4, that same red Ferrari gets turned into the fence. I slow up expecting him to spin on track. He doesn't so. 2 cars behind me race past me. No real self-preservation there. And you can see on the right hand side there that red Ferrari sideways once again, and once again he gets straightened out. So he's had a very eventful first lap, and I'm trying to be really cautious here after the shenanigans of that last race not to be causing any dramas. As a result, everyone around me is absolutely swarming me, and we come through turn number 7 here. This McLaren behind, it goes straight around the outside there. Really bold move, and I have found myself coming to the end of this first lap in dead last position, losing 8 places but not sustaining any damage whatsoever. So trying to be cautious, trying to be safe, trying to live up to that green S rating on the safety rating there, but as a result I have found myself in all the wrong places of the track. Hands in the air, completely last position, and we just sit here in last position trying to work out how to recover this race. Now 40 minutes into this race, we've allowed everything to settle down a little bit. We get a nice run on this McLaren at the start of lap number 4, up the inside, leaving enough space and getting enough drive out of turn 1 to have the nose in front as we make our way up to turn number 3. There's definitely a bit of a gap to a bunch of cars in front, but the yellow board indicators come out. There's chaos here at turn number 3. Jeff is involved in that one on the inside as well, and with that Ferrari in the middle of the track, we decide to go around the outside and pick up a couple of places there, with a few cars a bit closer now in front as we head to turn number 4. Now as we get to turn 4 a lap later, we are definitely starting to approach the back of this train in front. We've got a BMW way off to the left there into that inside fence. Very tricky to get to that part of the track, but we pick up one more position as a result. And then there, as we come down to turn number 7, there is another car off to the right hand side there in the gravel, so we pick up one more place once again. It's a lot of shuffling up in front, a lot of cars really working their way through the field here, and as we come to this final sequence of corners, there is again another bunch of chaos. Jeff is involved in that one once more, so his fortunes in this race have severely changed, and we pick up a whole host of positions there, and in the course of 2 laps we go from being dead last up to P19, one position better than our starting grid, and we are still showing no signs of damage on the car at all. Now we've got this Porsche behind. He has got a lot of pace on me. He was involved in that last turn incident and quickly caught me over the few minutes that followed, and we allow him to go up the inside into turn number 3 and see if we can't follow him up the field a little bit more. Again, we've gained a whole bunch of positions, so there's a bit of self-preservation in the thought of letting that car go at this stage of the race. 27 minutes in the race still to go here, and a Porsche is starting to make its way through the field, but it's causing a lot of chaos in these cars in front, and I'm not having to do too much work to hold on to the back of this train here. The Porsche and the Ferrari are going side by side into turn number 1. We get a nice clean exit of turn 1 with a little bit of pace now on this Car 21 black Ferrari. We're having a little bit of a look down the inside, try to look on the outside, and he covers both of those. So in the end we just pull in and try and follow for the remainder of this first stint. That first stint now is coming to an end. A couple of cars are starting to skip away in front, so I decide to take the initiative and come in with 22 minutes of this race still left to go. Just making the pit lane entry, and we come down the hill now, and this is probably the best pit stop I have done in LFM so far. I get the braking point for the pit lane entry pretty nicely, and just keep an eye on that orange McLaren, because we actually nail the stop here and go straight up, gaining a whole bunch of time here. And as the stop winds down and we get going, you can see the gain that I've made on the McLaren through that stop. Considering that McLaren was a few seconds up the road on me, it has really been beneficial for me. We've got in front of that black 21 Ferrari by a few positions now, and we've done a tyre change also, so there's some good pace in this car for the last 12.5 minutes of this race. And they were a cracker 12 minutes of racing. We've got the orange McLaren still in front of us, and he's been making some really good inroads on the black Porsche there. We're coming into the final corner, and the McLaren just gets on the power a little bit too early, and he slides off into the infield. So my target now is that black Porsche, and that Porsche, I believe, didn't take tyres during the stop, because he was a fair few seconds in front of us, but has been quickly coming back to me during this stint. Now, I had been putting out some really decent lap times for me. I've done a 28.8 in the race, and as a result, with 8 minutes and 18 seconds left to go, we're starting to put some pressure on this Porsche, which is obviously still heavily damaged, and with those tyres starting to go away. Now, he was a much quicker driver. He obviously caught and passed me earlier on in the stint, but I have a tyre advantage, and I'm hoping that I will be able to use it. On the other side of the equation though, behind us we have Jack Palmer, who's featured in the last few videos I have made, particularly the Spa Pro Series race and the race at Zolder a few weeks back, and I know he's capable of some very good driving as well. So while I'm trying to put some pressure on this Porsche, I've been watching the time from Jack behind slowly decreasing, and he's now right in the battle here, almost getting into the back of me at turn 3, but showing his presence there. 7.5 minutes left to go. This is really going to start cooking. Now we're coming up to turn number 3. This out of turn 1 was my strongest part of the track, and I was able to get a run on the Porsche this lap, but the weakness of the BMW having that exit acceleration issue out of turn number 3 basically meant that while I was well up the inside at turn 3, I was not able to get out of turn 3 well enough to try and make it stick into turn 4. As a result, Jack is on the outside of turn 4 on this particular lap, but we are fortunate enough to hold on to our position here, and it was certainly quite the challenge to be attacking the car in front while thinking of the defense from the quicker car behind as well. Not too long left in this race, so I was going to have to try and be very calculated with how I go about this. Coming now, 3.5 minutes left to go, not many laps left of this race remaining. We're coming up to turn number 1, been focusing heavily on my exit of this corner, and I get it really nice on this particular lap. You see 1.5 tenths up on my fastest lap, and we are now got a really nice slipstream here. Porsche's looking to cover the inside a little bit, but he offers it up for me in the end, and we come up to turn number 3, hard on the brakes, still trying to leave that room on the outside, trying to squeeze him as much as I can, but as you can see, Porsche with a nice drive on the outside of that turn. He's totally worked out where his strength is, and he continues to play that card. We go a lap later and it's exactly the same thing coming through turn 1. However, this time round Jack has a better corner exit out of turn 1 as well, and you can see we're all line astern as we make our way up to turn number 3, but I still have a really good run on the Porsche. We go up the inside once more. He's covering a little bit harder this time, the Porsche, and I go a little bit deeper trying to put some pressure on. There's a tiny touch, it doesn't register as damage, and I get alongside out of turn 4 with the nose in front quite substantially. However, Jack is right there. I would really like to be squeezing the Porsche on the left side there, but I've got to keep covering my inside line. As a result, I have to brake early. The Porsche hangs it around the outside, and he manages to now have the nose in front, and I'm kind of on the long side a little bit, but going side by side through turn 6 isn't advisable, so we have to pull in behind a compromised exit for the Porsche, so the run down the hill I'm a little bit better, and into turn 7 1. I've got a really nice run here. However, I get on the power a little early. I get a really big slide on the curb there, and immediately Jack is up the inside there behind. He's always there ready to pounce. It was the tiniest of all mistake, and he gets down the inside into the final sequence of corners. It's a really nice set of driving by all involved there. It was a really nice battle, and I highly enjoyed it, even though I wasn't able to pull a move on the Porsche and ultimately got passed by Jack there. But we're going to come into the final lap and we're going to see if anything else unfolds. We get through turn 1, not the best this time around, with a bit of a wiggle on the exit. And this is obviously the first time that Jack was going to have a look at this Porsche as well, and he hasn't got the best of run out of turn 1 either, so he's not really able to contest up into turn 3, which was where I was really hoping to try and to be able to capitalize. Also behind, I've got the number 21 Ferrari who's joined the fight as well, so there's definitely a point as we come out of turn 3 where I'm looking behind to make sure I don't lose any more positioning there. And as we come through the final sequence of corners, but I've lost a little bit of time in the first part of the lap defending my P17 position there, and as we round the final corner, that's exactly where it ends. As I said before, it's really good driving by all involved, and you can see I've ended the race with absolutely no damage on the car. So to have all of that close racing, all of that drama from the first lap, and all of the different aspects of that one, I was just really happy that this was the race that followed that other race from earlier on. So let's wrap up those races now at Red Bull Ring. It's safe to say that the mistake I made in race 2 was a truly terrible moment for me inside LFM. This sort of mistake has happened to me in races, and I've always tried to be really calm and positive when it does. I now know the feeling that other drivers get when they make a mistake like that, and you truly do feel terrible. It is always another human being on the other side of the equation, so when these things happen to me, I've always tried to be positive as a result. But knowing the feeling now has really taught me the lesson of why it's important to always be fully aware of what you're doing on track. And it was really a moment, lack of concentration, not focusing on the bigger picture of what that race was for me. The other thing I worked out this week is during my LFM races is just how much of a struggle it is to be at the ELO rating and the pace I'm at inside LFM. Now all those races were split 1 events, and as a result I was surrounded by some of the very best drivers inside the game. All of those drivers are much quicker than me, and doing what was one of my very best races in LFM in that last race only resulted in a very small ELO gain. Now it required my best driving and some luck to produce a result like that, and as you saw in race 2, a result like that can easily be undone in just one moment in the race. I truly recognise that if I want to progress further with my ELO rating, I'm going to need to find probably a good half a second of both qualifying and race pace to be able to achieve that. It's probably something that will occur over seasons rather than each single week, and maybe I get lucky in the coming weeks with the occasional split 2 race to help with some of that ELO rating. But I'm truly enjoying the racing inside split 1, and even if it's for lower positions, having good battles and clean battles with other drivers is a lot of fun, and I'm certainly here for it. So guys, as always, let me know what you think of those races, and let us know in the comments what was the first big mistake you made inside LFM as well. Looking forward to bringing you some more videos. Subscribe and give it a thumbs up if you're new around here and want to see more racing like this. Race hard and stay positive. We see you all again in another video soon. Cheers.